Welcome to the show, everybody. Welcome, everybody. It's news time here at the TruthWire. It is Friday, February 14th. I am your host, Craig Pasta-Jardula.
And I'm your other host, Fiorella.
All right. Fam, what's going on? I'm waiting to hear about the studio space that I'm supposed to be renting. So therefore, I don't look like a white knight over here. I'm so bright, I can't get a good mixture between the two. But it's going to be coming very, very shortly. I'm going to be in a spot. I have one of two locations I'm trying to solidify. So I'll be in a studio probably Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Mondays and Fridays when we do the Truth Time, TruthWire. And then Wednesdays when I do my WBAI show in New York, the call-in show, fam, that's just been blowing up. The phones are packed each time. I'm going to get a billboard in New York. I got a little promo of me pointing to a watch saying it's drive time. And it's truly intriguing, fam. It's one of the best things I've ever done because you're reaching out to the people and they're actually calling in. You never know what they're going to say. But I think it goes back to the core of why we started doing the Convo Couch years ago. We wanted to increase the discourse out there. We wanted to have conversations. We wanted to come to conclusions. We wanted to have understandings. We wanted to just advance as far as humanity is concerned, fam. So there's a lot of great stuff that's in front of us right now down the road, despite all the craziness that we live in the cartoon.
Yeah, I mean, the world is insane. And I feel like we are once again witnessing a psychological operation like we witnessed during COVID, like we witnessed during the elections, like we witnessed during Russia-Ukraine. I think it's happening again with Donald Trump. Donald Trump has blinded many people, not just his supporters. I expect that from those, but from people who should know better. Going back to the receipts, the connections to the deep state via Palantir, Peter Thiel, PayPal Mafia, via the AI desires of Elon Musk. And I just wrote a really long article that everybody should read. It's going to take you a minute, but it's everything I could possibly think of to talk about what's actually happening with US aid and what's actually happening with Gaza and how the plan all along was to essentially use the ceasefire to continue expanding the Abraham Accords via the Abraham Shields plan and also continue expanding Greater Israel. So these are the things that people aren't really talking about because they're so hyped up from the hopium from USAID, which is just a transfer of power into the technocratic sector. So we're going to be talking about all these things. And of course, we're going to talk about the Putin-Trump conversation and what that could potentially mean for the future of geopolitics. So, though, we have a guest.
We do. We have a great guest, somebody who's probably a fam. You keep talking the way you're talking. This guy's going to offer you a job. He is the editor of the Trends Journal magazine. He is an old school soul. I mean, really, to tell you the truth, yesterday I was able to talk to my paisan, Don DeBar, and the ability, right? The honor to talk to this guy on a regular basis. He's, like I said, he's just one of those old school truth tellers. We were last together on Peter Lavelle's Crosstalk. It was me and him and another Trumper. But I think he'll agree with a lot of things you say. I've been listening. He does a great show with Judge Napolitano, another paisan, on Wednesdays. Check him out, ladies and gentlemen. The great, the one and only Gerald Celente is with us.
Thanks for having me. And thank you both for all you do. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Listen, we're going to talk about tariffs because we want to get educated on them. Me and Fiorella were talking this morning, and we were trying to get a kind of an understanding about where people are on tariffs, how effective they can be. You've said many times before, McKinley, the president, used to say, "What do you want? Cheaper products or higher wages? Make a decision." And at the spirit of some of these tariffs that Donald Trump has been talking about, he used also the term reciprocal tariffs. And I think that he did try in his first administration. He went back and forth with China. Maybe you can give us a little insight to what the spirits of a tariff is supposed to be. But Gerald, I also want to ask too as well, the spirit of the tariff might be different from when you say, what do you want, higher wages or cheaper products? Donald Trump is not using the tariff as a way of making our economy better. He's actually using them. I was reading the Wall Street Journal that you talk about too as well. He's using them more as a weapon, like a sanction to change behavior. So why don't you just dive on into why the tariffs could be good, how they should be applied, and maybe the history, what happened before. Take the time. You have the floor. You're a finance guy, so educate us on tariffs.
Well, when we had tariffs, we didn't have income tax. That's where the money came in, from the tariffs. And that slime ball may rot in hell, a little piece of crap, Woodrow Wilson, the guy that gave us World War I that we had no business being in. He gave us the Federal Reserve, the banks to bandits to take over the country. Gave us federal income tax and the IRS. We didn't have any of that before McKinley was shot. And then Teddy Roosevelt, another one. By the way, there was, I used to be as a young kid, I grew up in the Bronx, and then we moved to Yonkers later on, but we used to go to Yankee games all the time. And one time, Yogi Berra, the catcher, the umpire's name was McKinley. And McKinley called a strike that should have been a ball, or a ball that should have been a strike. And Yogi Berra said to McKinley, they shot the wrong McKinley.
That's great.
So anyway, going back to tariffs, here I am in Kingston, New York, and you were up here.
Yeah.
This place was filled with factories, Gantt factories, shirt factories. I have these dishes from my Aunt Zidzi, and may she rest in peace. Syracuse, China, made in Syracuse, New York. They were making things in America. When they got rid of the tariffs, and then there were no things called Rust Belt cities. It didn't exist before. It started going down when they started doing away with the tariffs. So let's go back. Tracking trends is the understanding of where we are, how we got here, where we're going. Once upon a time, not too long ago, there was a slimy little piece of crap that still exists. And this was the T-shirt that I got made up when he ran for president back in 1992. Beware Slick Willie. A little piece of scum, a little nothing of a boy, a little clown, gave us NAFTA. Get those jobs out of America and bring them down to Mexico. You pay them nothing over there. You make a lot more money, all right? Oh, and give me the money too. They pay this little bastard $300,000 an hour, the Goldman Sachs gang and others, to hear his bullshit when you can hear him for free. It's called payoffs. That morons and imbeciles, by the way, call campaign contributions to the other ones. And then he gave us China into the World Trade Organization. Look at China's GDP from 1970 to 2001. They officially came in 2 weeks after 9/11 when no one was looking. You look at their GDP, come into the World Trade Organization, woof, shoots up. All the scumbags from Europe, United States, bring over your manufacturing from high tech to heavy industry to China. We got slave labor over there. Oh, I grew up during the Vietnam War. I'm the same age as Trump. All right? Those dirty commies. If we don't stop them, those dominoes will keep falling. And before you know it, they'll take over Asia. Hey, got some. The same commies, Vietnam, they're running Vietnam. Oh, that's our second biggest importer of clothing, shoes, and furniture. It's all about money. They took away all our jobs. Once upon a time, there used to be a thing called the middle class. We had manufacturing jobs. Now, here's the downside, by the way, what's going on with Trump. And again, about bringing the jobs back here. The jobs they're bringing in, they're not paying the people like shit. They're paying like $16, $17 an hour. Again, but this is the beginning of the trend. Michelin just announced they're coming back to the United States. They wanted more manufacturing here because of the restrictions going on in Europe. That's more bureaucratic than anywhere. As two paisanos, there's nothing. Italy is one of the most scum bureaucratic countries in Europe, and followed by others. So they're leaving. So I'm saying If we had a strong manufacturing base back in this country and it was made in America, it would bring the economy up. And I'll give you more proof. Again, as trend forecasters, one of our saying is opportunity misses those who view the world through the eyes of their profession. So if we're talking about economics, what do you know about geopolitics? Let's go back to February 24th, 2022, a little over 2 years ago. Little Joe Biden, a little piece of scum that's sucked off the public tit his whole life with a brain as size of little Georgie Bush's, like a pea. A little arrogant piece of scum. Oh, that bit one, yeah? Yeah. We're going to put those pressure on Russia because they invaded Ukraine. And Putin's going to pay the price because of all the sanctions we're going to put on them. We wrote in the Trends Journal, Putin's not going to pay the price. This is going to be a positive for Russia. And I'm going back to sanctions, remember, and being made in America. Remember all the companies that were leaving Russia? McDonald's, all one after another, Starbucks, all of these companies pulling out. We said this is going to be a positive for Russia. They have all the human and natural resources to be self-sustaining and self-sufficient. Bingo. Their economy went up when a lot of others went down. Same thing is happening with China. They got 1.4 billion people. Oh, they don't have the mentality. Oh, they just came out with DeepSeek. Oh, that beat NVIDIA with the big expensive chips. And they came out with one's a fraction of a cost. They're becoming more self-sufficient and self-sustaining. America has what we need to be self-sufficient and self-sustaining. This globalization is a bunch of crap for the bigs, the Walmarts, and all the others to get cheap stuff and bring it over here and make more money. And becoming more self-sufficient and self-sustaining, we have the human and natural resources. However, let's import that fine French wine. And I love that prosciutto from Italy.
Yeah, right. I'm like, we're going to get Parma prosciutto with tariffs. We can't do that.
So that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
You bring back, I agree. Again, I totally oppose Trump's genocide support, sending more 2,000-pound bombs, another $7.3 billion of our money for Israel to keep slaughtering people. I can't stand the Zionist crew that he brought in there. But again, we're trend forecasters. It's not who you like, what you want. It's what is. So we call the positives and the negatives. Oh, he just came out today, said cut the military budget by 50%. All right. You know, I launched Occupy Peace. You were a speaker up here. Totally approve it. So you look at the whole picture. Yeah. And again, bullshit has its own sound, as we used to say in the Bronx. So Trump says one thing and does another thing. I'm going to put those tariffs. First day I come into office, 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Comes into office. I'm going to wait 2 weeks. 2 weeks come, February 1st, he puts the tariffs on. 2 days later, he took them off. Yeah. I'm going to end that war in Ukraine in 24 hours. It's 3 weeks later. The war's still going on. So he says one thing and does another thing. So you never know.
Yeah. Fam, you are drinking like the Starbucks knockoff, right? What is it? Can you hold up the cup and let the people see? Because you're in Moscow. I mean, Gerald has a point here, right? If we can be self-sufficient in a way, I don't know what your thoughts are on that, fam, because we've kind of talked about, tariffs itself, but has it been effective? Has it worked in Russia from what you're seeing? There's no McDonald's. There's no Starbucks. They had to do their own thing. Wouldn't that work for us?
Well, no. Well, there are several layers to this, but just so people can hear. So this is Star's coffee. It's not Starbucks. It's literally they took it and they made it into like the Tsar hat. And so they have the McDonald's version, which is Russian essentially now, but it's essentially almost the same thing, except it's healthier because the products here are healthier. So that didn't work because those sanctions, Russia basically found a way to be resilient and innovate against them and found that their people still bought the product and they could just produce inside. However, I agree with you, Gerald. I agree that the work industry has been completely outsourced into Southeast Asia, into these sweatshops that we're talking, where they pay them slave wages, and then what you have is like fast fashion or fast consumerism, where people buy very cheap products. And what we do need to have in the United States is union paying American jobs that pay a decent wage. However, what do you say to the people that criticize the tariffs as being that a price that's going to be paid by not the foreign countries, but the importers or American companies, who will then foot the bill to the consumers? Because they say that the money to pay tariffs goes to the US Treasury, and then these companies in turn pass the higher cost to the customers in the form of higher prices. What do you say to that criticism of the tariffs?
Again, it goes back to what McKinley said. Do you want cheap products or higher wages? So if your wages go up and the price goes up, that's great. You equal out. And then you look at the other side of it, and are the companies going to profit from paying higher wages and having more products made here? And again, in the short term, it's going to be costly. Right. I think in the long term, if they do it in the right way, it will be beneficial, because there's the other part of the money that I'm talking about. And that is, I'll pay more for that, but I don't want to pay these lousy damn income tax that they're stealing from me. So if you're going to get rid of income tax and bring in tariffs, then I'm for it. I mean, the damn income tax that he got to pay? Holy Jesus. And for what? And again, I totally support Trump's getting rid of these government agencies. And just a little background, I was the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate. I used to work on major political campaigns in Westchester County, the richest county in America, back in the 70s. I designed and instructed a course called American Politics Campaign Technology, how to run political campaigns, taught at St. John's University. I was the chief government affairs specialist for the chemical industry, killing environmental legislation at the height of the environmental movement in the 70s. 28 years old, I was staying at the Willard Hotel, putting my meetings on to Hay Adams, which is right across the street from the White House. I started growing up in by 32, but I wouldn't know what I know if I wasn't on the other side. And now, of course, I'm totally opposed to it, but I wouldn't know. The people in government are the lowest pieces of scum crap on the planet, right a little bit above the politicians that get into office. Politicians are I quit the Senate because of these little disgusting clowns, these politicians, little ballless little guys with bad attitudes. And the people that are in the government, they suck into the system. When I quit the Senate, none of my friends could believe it. I said, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to suck to this crap. My best friend, Brian Donahue's wife, became lieutenant governor under Pataki. So the government agencies, whether it's city, local, or state, are filled with the lowest pieces of arrogant crap on the planet. So I'm glad he's doing that. But again, when you talk about what's going on in Israel, I'm totally opposed. So I call it the way it is. So going back to the cost, Trump said he's going to get rid of income tax with tariffs. Great. Raise those prices. It'll cost me pennies compared to what I got to pay in taxes or anybody else.
I just have a follow-up to that. What about the appearance in terms of diplomacy when Trump comes in and he's demanding 20-something% tariff from Mexico and then going and doing that against China? It does seem like he's trying to wage a different form of war, but it's coming across like the same old tired of U.S. type of arrogance, like if you don't do this and we're going to do that and we're going to do this. Whereas when you look at how other countries operate, whether it's Russia or China, they tend to be far more diplomatic. Do you think that's the best approach given besides the United States, right? Domestically, externally, people have been criticizing that approach as being quite abrasive and arrogant.
It's at every level. Look at all the wars America's started. I'll tell you what to do. What the hell are you telling me what to do for? You're 6,000 miles away from me. You're going to tell me what to do? And again, that's Trump's attitude. The Trends Journal magazine, which I publish, we call Trump a winner when it was a quarterly, now it's a weekly. In the spring of 2016, when everybody said he was going to lose, the people wanted something different. They were tired of the system. And being that Trump is who he is and what he's done, we have the trademark that we took out back then, presidential reality show. This guy's a sitcom guy. He's been doing this, 13, 14, 15 years? The Apprentice? This is who this guy is. And by the way, I had lunch with his brother, Robert, back in 2017 when Trump was president. Robert died a few years ago. He had a restaurant over here in Wassaic that he was supporting, which is on the east side of the river, Hudson River, where I am. And I was with him for 3 hours. We had lunch together. And he went on to tell me that when the father died, the father left the family over $500 million worth of real estate. Trump is a spoiled daddy's boy. And he BS's the way he wants, does what he wants, says what he wants. And now, by the way, as I say it, we have a dictator in charge. This guy has an ego bigger than anything on the planet. And so that's when you say about how he talks and what he does. But again, look at all the wars, look at all the murder that America's committed, that they do what they want to do. This is no different, just a different language.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I want to eventually get to talking about Trump and what just these executive orders. I think you wrote in the Trends Journal, like, I think in a short amount of time, and I know that one party gets into power and the other party immediately complains about them. And I know there's a lot of Democrats talking about, these executive orders, but Biden did the same thing, but not at the rate in which Donald Trump has done such a short amount of time. And a lot of these things, I think they're just symbolic, Gerald. He knows they're going to get pushed back. Like the birthright citizenship was one. Even the freezing of the funds. I mean, Congress is supposed to have the power of the purse. Donald Trump just doing whatever he wants to doing. And look, I get it, but I hate to hear the excuse, well, the other guy did it, so we get to do it. That's not the way, our government's supposed to work. We're supposed to find compromise. We're supposed to go through a Congress to change some of these rules. I know there's a lot of people who don't like the Department of Education, but you can't just go, we're going to get rid of it when Congress has already sat down at the table and appropriated that money for it. And I think there's a lot of, once again, Houdini and red herring, because when we start talking about the cuts, Gerald, when he gets rid of USAID, they're just going to reappropriate that money a different way and give it to the military-industrial complex. And now the military-industrial complex is a little bit more technocratic. So even if you cut that budget, you can always find ways to give your friends money. I mean, look at the stock buybacks when he was the president. Go right ahead.
Oh, the stock buybacks, the tax breaks that he gave in 2017 when he said we're cutting the taxes and the corporations would use this money for capital improvements. It wasn't capital improvements. 2018 was the biggest year of stock buybacks. Again, he's in it for himself. Again, I'm the same age as Trump. He's a couple of months older than me. In one of my books, I think I gave you this book, what Zizzy gave Honey Boy.
You didn't give me that book, but I saw the movie. I watched it the first time I met you, about a week after I rented the movie. I think it was like on Netflix or something where you can just buy it. And I watched it like 3 times because it reminded me so much of my family, And
of course, my other books are trend tracking, far better than Mega Trends, Time Magazine, Trends Journal, international bestseller. Of everything I've written, this is my Zizzy book is my favorite book. By the way, you can get it by going to Trends Journal. And you go to the About thing. But anyway, I'm just back to Trump. again, I'm born right after the war, 1946, in the Bronx. It's a different trip. They couldn't control me, my brothers. The greatest threat our parents used to give us, you little bastard, I had enough of your shit, you're going to military school. I'll be good, I'll be good, I'll be good. You think I'm going to go to military school? My mother, may she rest in peace, this great Italian woman cooking delicious food, having a time of my life. I'm going to go to military school, dressed up in a drag costume, totally went to go to sleep, went to wake up and eat crap food. Trump was so narcissistic, he went to military school in Cornwall, New York, about a half hour south of where I am up here in Kingston, in the middle of nowhere. In the middle of nowhere. Dressed up in his little costume. He was so and is narcissistic. He only cares about himself. And he's power hungry. So he's going to do everything that he wants. I'm telling you, this to me is going to be a dictator government.
It's kind of crazy hearing you say that, because the liberals or the conservatives that are fans of Trump would say, "Oh, look at this liberal! Look at how he's calling Trump a dictator." Like, because this is what the liberals have been saying about Trump. But one of the things I want to
But it was just let me back off on that. I just said the positives.
Yeah, of course.
We talked about the tariffs. They don't do that. The libtards. They don't talk about the positives. Yeah, I think what he's doing and trying to end this war in Ukraine, great. Terrific. He says he's going to cut the military budget 50%, great. But then I say what I don't like. So how could the people, when they put themselves in a category, I'm a conservative, I'm a liberal, well, your mind is like the size of a pea? I'm a political atheist. I don't believe in any of this crap. To me, it's a crime syndicate that people call a government.
Yeah.
Right. So there's no nuance in politics. There's sensationalism. There's choose the team. And that's the problem, I think, that we're all sort of pointing out right now. So you pointed out the good about the US AID being dismantled and getting these corrupt people out of government. But the problem is that Trump and Elon Musk under the Department of what is it? The Doge. Yeah, I forget what the acronym is now, but I've been saying it so often. Under this department, he's trying to basically cut the cost, slash the cost of waste, of governmental waste, and essentially under this, Elon Musk has hired a lot of his friends that have connections to not just the intelligence apparatus and the Department of Defense, but also Peter Thiel, Palantir, a lot of these very technocratic Silicon Valley big tech oligarchs that essentially are so excited. You had Joe Longsdale basically have an orgasm by talking about how excited he is about Doge and what's going to happen with that. And you're seeing them get so excited. We're talking about multi-billionaire technocrats from Silicon Valley. These people are going to have their hands in not just the structure of things, but the money, the fiscal policies in so many ways. What do you make of that? How dangerous is this now transition into the private sector that we're seeing?
It's been going on forever. It's been going on forever. It's just right now, a face right now. Mm-hmm. Again, it's a crime syndicate. Look at when I was a young guy, there were things called grocery stores, hardware stores, stationery stores, drug stores, shoe stores. Now everything's in chains. They did away with all the antitrust laws. Robinson-Patman Act, Sherman Antitrust Act, Clayton Antitrust Act. Oh, I forgot the Glass-Steagall Act Bill Clinton killed. Yeah. It's one after another. This is just more obvious and in our face. And it's interesting you're saying this, because today we just came up with a cover for next week's Trends Journal magazine. Money is power. Shut your mouth. The billionaires are in charge. It's right in front of everybody's eyes. Mm-hmm. Hey, Hey, I'm Elon Musk. I'm the richest guy in the world. I'll tell you what to do. Oh, and I got my little kid here.
Yeah.
Hey, Gotso, how about me? I want to talk to Trump. You little giddy bastard, get out of here. Who the hell do you think you are? I'm rich. I'm a billionaire. I can speak. Shut your mouth. You have no right to talk. You're not a billionaire. Get the hell out of here. A democracy. Oh, by the way, not a guy I was very fond of. And I want, just to make it another circle, oh, Celente is an anti-Semite because he can't stand the slaughter. You know, by the way, 3 of my last 4 girlfriends were Jewish. And every one of my Jewish friends were against it. But I'm going to say something. You can't call me an anti-Italian. There was a guy by the name of Mussolini. The merger of state and corporate powers is fascism. And that's what you got. Fascism. So don't call me anti-Italian and don't call me anti-Semite. And by the way, the people running Israel are not Semites. They're Ashkenazis. They're Eastern Europeans. The Semites are the Palestinians in the Mesopotamia region. And Netanyahu's, what is his real name? Milikowski. And we could go on and on. So anyway, going back to about the rich in charge, it's fascism in front of our eyes.
Yeah. Did you said the last 3 girlfriends were Jewish, by the way?
Yeah, you know why Jewish men die before their wives?
Why is that?
They want to.
Ah.
I didn't make it up. You can look at it.
No, those are old school jokes. I was going to ask you if you ever heard of a good Jewish wine.
No.
I want to go to Miami. That's a good one. So listen, let's talk about this a little bit more, because I know we've had personal experiences about, some of the media and some of the apparatus, the people we used to work with quite a bit. You used to do Alex Jones, and we don't see anymore on that show. That was frankly the only time I really watched the show. I really never could stand him that much. And now I think he's just lost his mind. And he's not the only one. You think of characters like Tim Cast and whatnot who want to kind of tell this fairy tale. In other words, like you said, you're very, even. You're going to talk about the good, the bad. You're going to call balls and strikes. I think that's the most important thing. But there's a lot of these people out there that are kind of repeating this rhetoric that Donald Trump is taking on the deep state. How disappointed are you in some of this independent media that's repeating this garbage?
Again, it's a very well with not being on Alex Jones, very disappointing to me. I've known him for many, many years. Used to go to Austin, go out to dinner, on and on. And I supported him when he was down, and they just cut me off. They give me a reason why, and
but you know the reason why. You're critical of Donald Trump, and that's not, you can't do that with some of these people.
And so it's the human spirit. There are men and women and the people that stand up for what they believe in truth. And then look, I'm a journalist, and journalism is dead. I mean, you get the magazine. There's no magazine, and I'm not bragging.
Yeah.
But I'm saying, you show me a magazine that comes close to it. Nothing on the planet. And we write, again, we're talking about the Israel war, right?
Yeah.
We subscribe to Haaretz, the Israeli newspaper.
Haaretz, yeah.
We go to Times of Israel. Oh, we also go to IRNA, ISNA, Press TV. Want to hear what they have to say? We those are the Iranians. Oh, we want to hear what the Arabs have to say. We go to Arab News. We go to Al Jazeera. Ukraine war. Oh, we go to the Ukrainian stations. Of course, we go to RT, but we also go to TASS. We want to hear what everybody has to say. Yeah. And in the magazine, we write, this is what they're saying here, here, and here. This is our analysis, and this is where we see it going. So you're not getting one side. Yeah. And everything now, I like Trump, I watch Fox. I hate Trump, I watch MSNBC. The minds are the size of a pea. Yeah. Jayme, let me listen.
Isn't it? But it's designed this way. It's much easier to control people in this mindset. And what I've been hearing is a lot of praise for Trump. And I want to ask you about this particular huge foreign policy issue that has been labeled one of the most historic things that Trump will do. My personal point of view, based on being in Moscow and knowing that this has long been talked about, is that Trump has been selected by the apparatus to be the one to clean up Biden's mess, but essentially continue the foreign policy in its new facet. The United States is pivoting now away from Eurasia, looking into China, looking at Iran. And in terms of the conversation between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump and how this is being portrayed in media, what are the facts that you see coming out as to the benefits of this, the obvious benefits, but also why now is my question that this is happening?
I believe that if Trump was in office when the Ukraine conflict was going on and it was getting to that breaking point, although he didn't do very much to stop it when they were killing people in Donbass when he was president, I don't think the war would have escalated to this level. I think he would have tried to do what he could to quiet it down. I really do. And we'll see what happens, of course, with it. And by the way, I've been blacklisted from TikTok. About 3 weeks ago, they put up a clip of me saying that there's going to be a false flag event and Ukraine is going to do everything they can to keep this war going, like bombing a nuclear power plant. I got banned permanently from TikTok for putting that, when they put that clip up. And what happened now? It's being reported that there's been a strike at Chernobyl, and they're blaming the Russians.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I got banned permanently for just saying that. So is there a deep state behind this? Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And I don't know who's running it. Nobody does. I mean, are the Rothschilds still involved in it? I mean, again, it's the money powers. It's the if you don't have money is power. End of story. Yeah. Money is power, as we used to say in the Bronx. Money talks, bullshit walks.
Money talks and bullshit runs the marathon. My last question before I hand it over to Fee to close up the show with you. You were one of the first people to go out there and push for RFK to run. I think you were the initial guy to make that push, and then he went with it. Things went along. I know I did my part in asking him the question about Gaza and Israel. It was a couple days after your event. We went up to that area in New Hampshire when he was there at the Senate. We asked him his stance on Israel and Gaza, and it opened up a can of shitworms on him. I never got my interview that I was promised by Stephanie Spear, but you actually, I believe, went and asked for your money back, your donation back, after his position on Gaza and, Israel, occupied Palestine, came to fruition. What are your thoughts on after the hearing in which all of a sudden, it's a new RFK. Now I'm pro-vaccine, and now I agree with the vaccine schedule. Oh, and by the way, Gerald, Operation Warp Speed, in which I said last year was a disaster, is now a phenomenal achievement. What are your thoughts on him, Tulsi Gabbard, who's obviously taken money from AIPAC, rubbed elbows with Rabbi Shmuley, and I think has done one of the most nefarious things? She's played the manufacturing consent. In other words, she said that Islamicists are the greatest threat to American people out there, when she knows damn well that those Islamicists she's talking about are funded by the United States government. What are your thoughts with those two getting through the committee, now getting through the Senate, and getting those nominations?
Going back to RFK Jr., I had Dennis Kucinich as one of the speakers up here.
I was there.
Yeah. That was his campaign manager.
Yeah.
And Kucinich quit after RFK Jr. became so pro-Zionist. And it's the same thing with Tulsi Gabbard. I mean, she's all over the place. She's only in it for herself. And, when I was a speaker when they had this Rage Against the War Machine rally in D.C., I think it was about 2023 or 2022.
Yeah, that's when we met. Well, I met you in Arizona before that, but we saw each other and shared the stage there again as well. It was an
Yeah.
honor.
And anyway, yeah, right. That's right. And we were both there. And Tulsi Gabbard was there.
Yeah.
And again, I got a picture of me when I picked up Ronald Reagan and put on a brunch for 16 of our board of directors when I was 30 years old. Yeah, I've been with presidents, prime ministers, and princes, right? Tulsi Gabbard had an attitude. Hello.
She did.
Hello.
That day she was really cold, Gerald.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Take it easy, baby cakes. And by the way, when I say that, my sister, may she rest in peace. This is the coaster over here. Can't see that. Grace's Lucky Lounge. My sister had the second topless go-go lounge in New York City. So back in 1968. Anyway, she has an attitude. They're in it for themselves. I think if Kennedy starts doing some of the positive things that he says he's going to do on the health, fitness, and nutrition end, I think it'll be a great positive. And by the way, this is the first book I worked on back in the 1980s, Natural Healing. I have an honorary doctorate from the National University of Health Sciences for the work I've done in it. And as you well also know, when Trump called a state of emergency on March 13th, Black Friday, 2020, and shut down the country to fight the COVID war. Oh yeah, bragging about the vaccination. We were totally opposed to it. I had a rally up here when everything was locked down, the Peace and Freedom rally. I'm one of the most hated people in Kingston because I refused to get the Operation Warp Speed jab.
Yeah.
And had a rally and had hundreds and hundreds of people, several hundred. So if Kennedy sticks by some of what he says on that, like the fluoride stuff, yeah, great. Tulsi Gabbard, to me, is just a sellout. She's only concerned about herself. She'll do what she wants, what she's told.
But by the way, really quickly, fam, I know you might have a question, but I just want to follow up because, Gerald, you remember this. Like, I was really upset when Bernie Sanders didn't say, hey, let's put aside everything we have and let's work on getting the processed food out of kids' schools, like, right? But we've already had this before. Michelle Obama tried. She really went forward with this. Listen, I'm not a big, what's his name? Bloomberg, the little small guy over there. I'm not a big Bloomberg fan by any means, Gerald, but when he was trying to get rid of the 56-ounce Cokes and stuff, Sarah Palin and the Republicans flipped their lid. You can't tell us what to do. Now it seems like we're seeing the opposite side. Now the Republicans who have taken over the health kind of movement, now they're going to try to push the same things. Aren't we going to see the same pushback from the left simply because the right is doing it? And doesn't that tell us a lot about what our governments really do? It doesn't represent the people. It just represents their donors with this phony divide and conquer theatrics they pull in front of us.
The Democratic Party, there's nobody there.
Yeah.
There's nobody there. There's never been a better time now for a third party. Never in my lifetime. And again, as I said, I got in the field. Matter of fact, just yesterday, Thomas Martinelli came by. That was Angelo Martinelli's son. Angelo Martinelli was the guy I worked on. He ran for mayor of Yonkers, New York. That's a big city. It was 220,000 people. And he came up, and my assistant Jane was here. And I said, he was an altar boy in my wedding back when I got married. That's how tight I was into the whole political system. There's never been I've been at this a lot of years. There has never been a better time now for a new third party. The people are disgusted with both of them. Trump is an actor. Again, it's a reality show, and he's a pro at it. And he has his group. But it isn't the mass. I mean, he bullshits like crazy about saying there's just that clip when I was before COVID. Because before COVID, he said the economy under me was the best in American history. Yeah. What the hell are you talking about? You're full of crap. You're not even close. So I'm telling you, he's an actor, and he has his fans that like the actor. But it's not the masses. There's never been a better time for a new third party, as I see it, than now.
My last question is just where do you see the U.S. pivoting now that they're going away from Russia? Like, what do you think is the next point of attack if indeed this peace is achieved between Russia and Ukraine, and we see Russia being invited back to the G8? Where do you see the United States looking to in terms of conflict?
Unfortunately, Iran. That would be
Yeah.
the wild card. That if that's played, it'll and I think Netanyahu is going to do everything he can. And look what they're doing. I mean, my God, what they've done to Gaza, bombing the place to ruins again under the Zionist, that little daddy's boy. Again, George Carlin, great guy back in the day, said it's one big club and you ain't in it. And little Anthony Blinken, a little boy of nothing. Oh, my daddy was ambassador to Hungary. My uncle's ambassador to Belgium. Little jerk. Look what they let. They gave him to bomb Gaza into ruins. Could you imagine if there weren't Palestinians living there and there were Jewish people living there and it was being bombed like that? Oh my God! The Palestinian lives don't matter. And again, Netanyahu's going to keep this thing going. And look, they took we're writing about it week after week in the magazine, the Trends Journal. They've taken over land in Syria. They control 30% of the water in Syria right now.
Yeah.
And then they've broken the ceasefire agreement in Lebanon. So they're going to ramp this thing up. If they go to war against Iran, it's going to be the end of life on earth. Yeah. Because, again, you don't have to be good at math to figure this out. There are 7 million Israelis. 7 million in Israel, Israelis. The other 20% are Arab. 7 million. 91 million Iranians. Who's going to win? The Iranians are very advanced technologically, scientifically, and militarily. These are the Persians. Very bright people. Yeah. They are downplaying what Iran did to Israel when they attacked after Israel killed several people in their embassy in Damascus, Syria. They're downplaying it and overplaying when Israel struck back. There's a thing called the Samson option, SAMSON. If Israel starts losing, they go nuclear.
Yeah.
And I believe that considering Trump's Zionist regime and how he's been bought off and paid off by the Adelsons and everyone else, he is total. And what the arrogance, it's our authority, he said, to say what's going on in Gaza. Our authority? It's not your authority. Oh, and how about his son-in-law? We wrote about this back when it happened.
Yeah.
It's valuable waterfront property.
Yeah.
And he's talking about making it a Riviera. So to me, we got to watch out for the Middle East, the Israel war. That is the big one. And Iran being if they play that wild card, that's the end of life on earth.
But the Iranian president now seems to be more of a reformist, and I think he's going to give them some areas to kind of work with where they can probably get some concessions, because I think they want relations with the West. Where I'm nervous about is
let me back off on that. Hold it. Trump just put extreme more sanctions on Iran.
Yeah.
And Iran is saying now that they're not going to even talk to America. Consider what they're doing.
Yeah.
They just put more sanctions on Iran.
Yeah.
What the hell right you have to do that? Oh, Iran's threatening us. What has Iran ever done to us? And by the way, just to make this 1,000% clear, in my book, Trend Tracking, Far Better Than Megatrends, Time Magazine, that's when I became a trend forecaster when the Iran war broke out.
Yep.
They taught us to hate Iran, not knowing how the United States, the CIA, and the MI6, the UK, overthrew the democratically elected government of Mossadegh in 1953 because he had the nerve to say that oil belongs to Iran, not Anglo-Iranian oil, better known today as BP, or Standard Oil, better known today as ExxonMobil.
Yep.
That's how I became a trend forecaster. And what you were saying before about supporting these terror groups, that little boy, that little peanut farmer with a brain the size of a peanut, and that little arrogant Brzezinski, and my daughter is now on MSNBC, they gave us the Mujahideen, which is now Al Qaeda, to fight the Russians in Afghanistan back then. And people have no idea about this. So going back to Trump is going to do everything he can to support Israel.
There's Operation Cyclone or Operation Mongoose. I can't remember that. Kind of lays into the Mujahideen working with running missiles from actually Uyghurs in China that we supported back in days because they were the most radical at that point. Even the problem that China's having with their Uyghur issues, and there's not all of them. It's only a small group of separatists, but that even stems from the United States of America and their covert wars. Shortly after Mossadegh was overturned, the United States looked to Latin America, and that's where I think we have to pay very close attention because Donald Trump has been able to sell this anti-communist, anti-socialist mentality. And with Marco Rubio there, like when people talk about USAID, it's gone. Let's not forget that in Bolivia, when they were cooing Evo Morales, it was Marco Rubio working the phone with the opposition. They didn't need to use USAID. And like Fiorella has pointed out, they can just be more overt about the whole situation. I think it's something to watch. And I think that you and Judge Napolitano on your shows, something that's really lost that people need to pay attention to. Your Fourth Amendment rights are being pissed on by Donald Trump. Him releasing the sanctions from the Israeli spyware company that has that Pegasus spyware. Judge Knapp wrote about this a long time ago. We've talked about this. This is pure evil. And Biden's administration even said, lock that thing up in a warehouse somewhere in Jersey. Donald Trump gets back into office. It goes away. Watch out for the Israeli spyware. Watch out for your Fourth Amendment rights. Watch out for your civil liberties. They are gone under Emperor Donald Trump. Thank you so much, Gerald Celente, for coming on. Last final thoughts and tell everybody where they can find you.
Trendsjournal.com. And you're 100% right about South America. It was Trump to try to overthrow the government of Maduro in Venezuela, brought in a guy, Guaido, that little clown.
Yeah.
And you're 100% right. They're going to do everything they can. I want the Panama Canal, one thing after another. Trendsjournal.com. You get it. You can read history before it happens. $2.50 a week.
You heard it from the man himself. Thank you so much, Gerald Celente Paisan. When I make it up to New York, let's get together, have some meatballs and Chianti.
All right. Ciao, ciao. Nice to see you.
Love you, brother.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
The great Gerald Celente, ladies and gentlemen, on this show right here, Truth Time on the TruthWire, fam. That's what we get. That's what you get when you come watch with us. You get a lot of good times and a lot of great guests. He's one of my favorites out there. Really, to tell you the truth, I don't want to make too much of it. That guy's my spirit animal. Like I said, I'm blessed and honored to be working with these guys, to be able to pick up the phone, just talk about life, talk about food, talk about politics. Just a down-to-earth guy. And, people often talk about his rage. I'm glad for his rage. Now, to me, the thing that I most revere and love about Gerald is his love. That's the Italian part I love. Our love for food, our conversation, our passion. But you know what, fam? People should be fucking pissed about what's going on. The death, the murder that is going on by this frigging cartel in our own country against the people of the world, it's too much. So I appreciate his rage, and I'm glad when he gets mad, because we should all be pissed off by what's happening in our name, especially with our foreign policy going around the globe. Just death and destruction everywhere, fam. Enough is enough.
Yeah. No, and I don't think our wars are over. And that's kind of what I want to lead into. I'll show the article. I'll put the link there so you guys can go read it. But I want to start by talking about the biggest story that's happened, right? Is the conversation that Donald Trump had with Vladimir Putin and the conversation that he had with Zelensky, though that one was overshadowed by the Putin, because everybody knows that Zelensky is sitting in the kids' table and Putin and Trump are sitting on the adult table. Trump and Putin are dealing with each other because everybody knows that who's running the show is not Zelensky, but obviously the United States and NATO. So you have this whole thing happening, and it's been all over the mainstream media. You, of course, have the liberals coming out and saying, oh, look, it's Donald Trump. He's best friends with Putin. Look at what they're doing to poor Ukraine. You have Zelensky saying he's suspect of Putin's intentions. But the reality is a little bit much more nuanced as usual. So let's go ahead and take a look. Can you bring up the BBC article, Jayme? I just kind of want to touch on that. It's just in general, just to give you guys a glimpse of what just happened. So there was a meeting, and I'm going to go through my thread. There was a meeting via telephone between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump. And in this conversation, they talked about several different things, including starting immediate talks to potentially end the Russia-Ukraine war. Now, in addition, since that happened, Russia has said that Ukraine will be involved in peace talks, which has to be said because every time that Ukraine has talked about peace talks, they haven't included Russia. And they still continue to do that to this day, right? And Zelensky has talked about how he is against trusting Putin's claims of wanting to end the war. And Donald Trump, of course, has said that he's hopeful. He thought the conversation was productive. But let's break down actually what happened and exactly what was said, because I think it's important to have the facts before we analyze certain things, right? So the conversation took 1.5 hours, and we can bring up the tweet thread. And the whole thing is going to be hailed as some sort of diplomatic effort. And really, from the PR perspective, you see Donald Trump coming in with this ceasefire deal, or not ceasefire, but peace deal. You have this peace deal that isn't even requiring a ceasefire, by the way. Right now, the war is still ongoing. And we're also seeing what Gerald Celente just mentioned is the potential false flag, saying that Russia bombed this area near Chernobyl. And that is essentially, of course, going to attempting to diminish the credibility of Russia, right? I think what Gerald said is correct. We're seeing the pivot to Iran, but I think we're also seeing the pivot to China, and as you said, Pasta, Latin America.
Yeah.
So I think this was set up for Donald Trump to come in and end the war in Ukraine. Whether or not he would have continued it to the extent that Biden did, perhaps not, but he, again, didn't stop it in the beginning. But in terms of the Ukraine war ending right now, this is Trump's role. And this is kind of what I've also written about is Joe Biden destroyed Gaza. He trampled on the rights of people via censorship. He did so many things, including, of course, the genocide. But apart from that, the war in Ukraine, Donald Trump is coming in as if he's cleaning that mess up. But really what he's doing is just repositioning things into a different area. So what we're going to see is that shift. And I want to mention some of the things that were said between the two and between their conversation. And you can just go down the thread, Jayme, the next thing. Let me see. It's not putting up right there. So let's go ahead and read Donald Trump's take on that. If you click on the picture, because he laid out exactly what he said. If you could just make it bigger. He said, I just had a lengthy and highly productive phone call with President Vladimir Putin of Russia. We discussed Ukraine, the Middle East, energy, and artificial intelligence, the power of the dollar, and various other subjects. We both reflected on the great history of our nations and the fact that we fought so successfully together in World War II, remembering that Russia lost tens of millions of people, and we likewise lost so many. We each talked about the strengths of our respected nations and the great benefit that we'll someday have in working together. But first, as we both agreed, we want to stop the millions of deaths taking place in the war with Russia, Ukraine. President Putin even used my strong campaign motto of common sense. We both believe very strongly in it. We agreed to work together very closely, including visiting each other's nations. So yes, Putin invited Trump to Moscow. There's going to be a meeting in Munich, I believe. We have also agreed to have our respective teams start negotiations immediately, and we will begin by calling President Zelensky of Ukraine to inform him of the conversation, which also happened. And something which I will be doing right now, I have asked Secretary of State Marco Rubio, Director of the CIA John Ratcliffe, National Security Advisor Michael Waltz, and Ambassador and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to lead the negotiation, which I feel strongly will be successful. Millions of people have died in a war that would not have happened if I were president. So that's what he's claiming, but it did happen, so it must end. No more lives should be lost. I want to thank President Putin for his time and effort with respect to this call and for release yesterday of Mark Fogel, a wonderful man that I personally greeted last night at the White House. I believe this effort will lead to a successful conclusion, hopefully soon. So that's what Trump said. The Kremlin responded similarly with their own version, which was essentially the same thing. So what
Can I
Trump's
make a
saying
comment about that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing about Donald Trump. He can get you like feeling so many different ways when he says certain stuff. First of all, I just want to point out the fact I love the fact that he was talking about both nations and acknowledging the fact that, you know, the sacrifices that Russia had made, the Soviet Union at the time during World War II. You know, we get that kind of empire education, that lie that it was the United States who suffered the most casualties, and we came in like Captain America, fighting for human rights, and we won the war on our own. If it wasn't for us, it would have never been won. Whereas if you look into what's really going on in World War II, the United States actually came under the coattails of the Russians and the Soviet Union and the sacrifices they made to win the war. Yes, it is true that, you know, American interests, Western companies, corporations finance both sides of the war, and we sat back and we waited till the nice time to get in so that we can get pat on the back and get some credit for it. And the history books are written that way, fam. So it's part of our programming. And I like the fact that Donald Trump mentions the fact that, you know, our two great nations talking about the sacrifices, and he shows that statesmanship that we're missing in our politics. I mean, for crying out loud, the play, the theater that we're looking at called for Biden and the administration not even to have talks with Russia for quite some time. And that's awful when you see no diplomacy. But then after he does that thing, you're like, this war wouldn't have been started if I was in office. Now, first of all, I want to talk back against that. First of all, it doesn't even matter. You have to acknowledge the part you played in this war. You have to acknowledge the fact that your administration applied and provided weapons to the Kiev regime that Barack Obama refused to give them. It's the same thing we saw here in Israel when those same bombs that even Biden's administration were like, I don't know about that. Maybe we shouldn't give them those 2,000-pound bombs, and Donald Trump comes in. You played a part in it. You played a part in what happened in Gaza. You played a part in what happened in Ukraine. Please, don't break your arm. Don't sprain your arm patting yourself on the back. And I think that goes a lot to that same message, make America great again. What part of America were you great? What part are you talking about? Like, I always talk about Jerry Rice, fam, who was a famous receiver for the 49ers. After he made a touchdown, he caught a ball and made a touchdown, he would turn around and give the ball back to the referee. There's a saying, act humbled. That's what we want to see. That's what good character is about. I hate when he pats himself on the back so hard that you know he sprained his arm. Okay, we don't have to hear how amazing and awesome you were. You played a part. Acknowledge that, and acknowledge, like, he doesn't acknowledge the part he played in Syria. Taking the oil. We saw the oil, fam. We took the oil. That's the thing about Donald Trump that just drives me crazy, and the Republicans. Why do they have to call themselves great? Why do they have to believe that this is the greatest nation, that they're the greatest species to ever walk the planet? Can't we just be humble in our dialogue?
We can't. This is not the American way. Look at who we prop up in the United States. A bunch of narcissists, as Gerald said. Trump is a narcissist. So no, we can't, because that is ingrained in our political system. One of the things that Putin mentioned that Donald Trump, and the U.S. haven't focused on is Putin said, then this displays a lot, right? We need to ensure that the root cause of the war in Ukraine is addressed. Because again, Russia has already been led astray by the West before, particularly by the United States. And I talk about, Charlie Brown taking the football, because they have been asking about security guarantees, and they want to make sure that the United States understands what began this in the first place. So he said, we must look to the root cause of the war. And if that is not something that's addressed in a way that Russia's satisfied, I don't think they're going to bite. They're also not going to give in on any of the territories when we're talking about Donbass, Crimea. None of that's going to go back to Ukraine. So if Ukraine thinks that that's going to happen, if there is a peaceful settlement, that's not going to happen. The troops, NATO troops, that's not going to happen either. And unless Russia backs up and decides, okay, well, we'll give in on this, they're going to have to give in on something. I'm kind of frightened as to what that something will be, but it's not going to be Ukraine joining NATO. At least not right now. It could be Ukraine joining the EU, which I think is going to happen anyway. But otherwise, I don't see them folding on any sort of territorial thing, right? So,
which is going to be used for the theater against Donald Trump. They're going to use that like crazy.
Of
Oh my
course.
God, they let them take the Donbass. This is what we were talking about. This should never happen.
Yeah, and so a lot of people are wondering, why is Russia keen on doing this? Well, there's a lot of things that have happened. Russia does have the upper hand when we're talking about the territory gained, the less amount of people lost, because they've lost people, but not at the level that Ukraine has lost. They have the upper hand in terms of weapons. They essentially have already won the ground military war. So there's no point in this. The United States is going to make it look like, okay, we're going to settle this, and it's not going to be a defeat. But it is a defeat for the United States. It is a defeat for NATO. That is a fact. You can't say that this is not a defeat for NATO and the United States. It absolutely is. However, depending on how well they negotiate, this is something that I believe we will come back to, because the United States, as we highlighted, is already pivoting away from Russia. However, if we look at what's happened in Moldova, what's happened in Georgia, what's happening in the region, in Eurasia, you're seeing that NATO is continuing to expand, is continuing to increase its grip in these areas that are Russia's proxies, Russia's former members or former CIS countries that were part of the Soviet Union. And when you look at all of that, what you see is the potential for this to come back again after, for example, this administration. So I am by no means saying that this isn't going to benefit a lot of people. It's going to benefit, obviously, if it goes through, it's going to benefit me. It's going to benefit people that are having a hard time traveling back and forth. It's going to benefit the death and destruction in Ukraine, because they're going to stop dying. I mean, they've lost pretty much the majority of the male population there. It's going to benefit Russia if they can obviously end the sanctions, and all of this will go back. Like I said before, Donald Trump is already inviting Vladimir Putin to the G8. Let's recall that they were kicked out by, I believe, Barack Obama, I believe. Not that this matters, but the really big point in all of this is the moment that this is happening is, of course, after the fall of Syria, and in the way that we're seeing Russia respond. What I'm seeing is that this is going right along with what I've been talking about, is this normalization, right? And you sort of mentioned it with Iran, and you're right. You have Pezeshkian, who is more of a liberal and less of a radical or a resistance fighter than the religious aspect of Iran, the resistance facets of Iran. There's a difference between the Ayatollah and literally the government in Iran. And what we're seeing here is Iran is a potential interesting thing, because I outlined in this thread how there was a treaty between Russia and Iran, right? And in this treaty, they have economic and military type of partnership. But outlined in the third section of the third clause says that if, for example, Iran was attacked or Russia was attacked, the other country is not going to respond militarily. They're just going to look at the UN Charter. Whereas if you look at North Korea and that whole discussion, it says no, that in terms of one of them being attacked, it's going to be looked on as the other state would provide a military and other assistance without delay. So they would get militarily involved if it's North Korea. That doesn't apply to Iran. And these are things that nobody has looked at, by the way. This treaty was ratified with North Korea by the State Duma. So it's been an essentially ratified treaty. That relationship with North Korea is established strongly militarily. They don't have that if you read the fine print with Iran. So it's very interesting as we're seeing, Syria fall, and we saw Jolani come in, and we just saw Vladimir Putin actually have a conversation with Jolani. We see that this negotiation will be brokered by Saudi Arabia, right? It's going to be brokered by Saudi Arabia. We're seeing the pivot for Russia towards Saudi Arabia and the Gulf states. We saw that with Turkey. We saw that with Syria as Assad was starting to lose his grip. We saw him pivot to Saudi Arabia. It does appear that Russia might have influenced Syria to pivot to Saudi Arabia. And what I'm seeing here is this sort of like, okay, now we're just going to have some sort of neutrality in West Asia or the Middle East. We're going to allow to happen whatever happens. We're going to establish Palestine or the idea of what a Palestinian state will look like. But is it really going to be a Palestinian state? No. And that's kind of what I outline in my article. And I think all of this is related because Jolani and Putin had a conversation, then Trump and Putin had a conversation, and then all of this is coming together. And I think for sure that we are going to see an end to this war this year. I think we're going to see somehow this negotiation come to the table. And so it's going to be hailed pasta prepare.
Yeah.
They're going to look at it as the greatest thing Trump has ever accomplished. Look what Joe Biden did and look what Trump's doing. I'm telling you that this was planned before Donald Trump even stepped into office. And he's the guy that's going to, take all the credit. But this is not something that just came out of nowhere. All of this has been laid out. And now, of course, that's what I said. This is the most predictable conversation because everybody knew, including Lukashenko, who said it during his election. He said, oh, yeah, we're going to have talks between the United States. They're already happening. And this year we'll see an end to the Ukraine war. He said it just like that. He was very sure of it. So this is not something that Trump is accomplishing. This is something that he's given to take to task in order to pivot to Iran, China, isolate China, work something out with Iran, and of course, extend greater Israel. Yeah. So that's my take on it.
Well, I mean, just the fact, fam, they were running out of men. You mentioned it and stuff. Yeah. It's like, how much longer can they take this onslaught? Even Kamala Harris told you, fam, Ukraine is a smaller country and Russia is a big country next to each other. So you knew at one point that, they couldn't sustain this. And I think they've stretched this out further than imagined. And that's probably because they've used a ton of mercenaries and whatnot. But this thing was bound to be over. I think they were looking for an off-ramp for quite some time, at least, to set themselves up. But fam, it will be hailed as a Donald Trump victory, and they're going to use this to build more confidence within Donald Trump. And I think we're able to display today that you got to be careful because you're going to steal from Peter to pay Paul, right? It's just one hand goes to the other. When he talks about cutting the Pentagon budget, okay, but where are they going to reappropriate that money? just because USAID is gone doesn't mean that money is not going to be spent in the military-industrial complex. And it's a new military going forward. It's a technocratic fourth industrial revolution. It will be going to other departments. There'll be other track and trace procedures that will be put in play. I mean, I think that's a lot. You know, we talk about Catherine Austin Fitts talks about, well, now the Republicans are doing this, and they're talking about those problems at the border and elections because they want to move you onto the grid. That is their goal. And Donald Trump was brought in to fulfill that task. And his relationship with the Zionist countries needs to be looked upon. Your civil liberties are gone. The Fourth Amendment right is gone. I mean, it's just there's an objective. There's an agenda, fam, and Donald Trump is there to meet that agenda. He's not there to save you. But they are doing a good job making it look like, oh, they're cutting the waste. That's what Doge is about, getting rid of these companies and these corporations or these NGOs that have been stealing from the people. He's going to get rid of all that stuff. They're doing a really good part at it, right? You know, they're playing a good part. But it is new times, and that's what it's meant to look like. But you just cannot be fooled. And anybody who's going to be that pro-Zionist, at the end of the day, you have to say no. Derek Bros talked about it the other day on our show. That's where the line is. So, but, you know, the libertarians are going to keep praising Tulsi Gabbard and RFK and all these other people. And I think we're just going to get more of the same, unfortunately, fam. The oligarchs are going to continue to be in power. And not to mention Donald Trump. Okay, not only every single cabinet appointee or anybody part of his campaign are ardent, you know, hardcore, deeply committed Zionists. There's also a lot of billionaires. The billionaire class is there. So, you know, I mean, it's not like he's helping the working class. It's not like he cares about you. You've been fooled. You've been duped. So that's where we're at. And by the way, I am going to be filling in. Do you have more to talk about this, or are we done with this?
No, that's it.
Yeah, that's it
We're waiting for them to meet, and everybody's waiting for that. So.
By the way, Tuesday, I will be filling in for Russell on Due Dissidence, and I will be with Keaton, and I will be co-hosting with that. I think it's 2 p.m. Eastern. I'm not sure, but the Tuesday show, I will be filling in, and I will be on Due Dissidence. And, of course, Wednesday, I got my WBAI show. And, fam, we've been rocking this on Mondays and Fridays. Matt's on assignment. He'll be on assignment all week. I like when you say that. We'll just be continuing to do these collaborations. TruthWires, Mondays and Fridays around 12:30, 1 o'clock-ish. We'll be here, me and fam. And Thursday's Matt's show, I filled in yesterday. I had Manila Chan on yesterday, fam. She needs a nickname. And, you know, she's a foodie, too. She's like you. She's a foodie. The first time we hung out, she took me for gelato, and I had an affogato. So she wants a food nickname if possible. Once again, we told her we can't control how your nickname comes. It just comes. But keep on the lookout.
Not Manny, I'm assuming, right? Not Manny.
Who's that?
You said she wants a nickname? Like,
yes.
For her?
Yes.
Yeah, like Manny. So not Manny.
Manny? Who's Manny? Am
her
I missing?
Nickname.
No, is it people call her Manny? Oh
no,
God.
I'm saying you're saying she wants a nickname.
No, not that. And we were joking. She said food, so I'm like, "What about Manila Chopsticks Chan?" She says no.
Oh, okay.
Because she's like, I could have gone noodles like me, pasta, but you said Manny. Manny's a guy's name. Fam, you got me so confused.
Manny does not have to be a guy's name. I think it was a girl's name in Degrassi, but don't quote me on that.
I don't think we're gonna go with Manny. Mayonnaise. I've been watching this.
Vanilla mayonnaise. I like it.
Mayonnaise. That's what Paulie wants. I started on season 3. I went to season 3, episode 1. Now I'm on 3, episode 7 right now. So, yeah.
Fam, I need to watch. I still haven't done it, so bear with me.
Manicotti. Menagot. Manila Menagot Chan. No. I don't know. We got to think of something. But that's it for today, fam. We've had a really good audience, almost 2,000 people, almost over 1,200 on your Twitter, over 700 on my Twitter, only 73 on the YouTube, guys. We need your help there. Of course, we're on Rumble, too, as well. So please share the link. How many people we got on Kick? Do we have 2?
Well, I still haven't gotten into that Kick.
No.
Jayme, can you show people the article? I need people to go and read this because It's probably I plan on doing something next week on it with Miss Vanessa. We're gonna dive deep into a lot of this stuff. So if you want to look at it and digest it, get ready for it. I listen to everybody on at least 1.5 or 2. If you send me a voice memo or if I'm watching something, I speed it up. I can't do normal voices. So I would recommend hearing it like at 1.5 or 2 because it's quite long, and it needed to be this long though because there's a lot of information, particularly focus on the Abraham's Shield plan that nobody has talked about. I'm going to be talking about that. It's a plan that Israel came up about a year after October 7th. And it's literally, it came out before the ceasefire, but it's literally the entire ceasefire terms. And it's basically going to introduce Gaza and make it into a payless system where every movement of theirs is controlled entirely, more than it is now. And it's going to be using Israeli surveillance. It's going to be using U.S. troops, and Israeli troops are going to leave, but the U.S. troops are going to be there, and Israel's going to have raids that are going to be strategic raids. They're not allowed to fight back. They're just, I mean, it is absolutely awful, and it's also outlines how they're going to isolate Iran from everywhere using Saudi Arabia and the Gulf. I mean, everything that I've been talking about, they literally say it. They literally say this is what they're going to do. And the ceasefire was mimicked from this. So it's Abraham Accords baby, essentially. And it's going to, that's what they're going to want to happen in Gaza. But what I said there was what's going to happen in Gaza is going to eventually happen in the United States, because if you look at how Israel was tested during the COVID era, where they unleashed a lot of the things there first, we're going to see this sort of cashless payment type of system, this surveillance control, all of that, the control of the movement. It really has every single thing that could potentially come into any city in the U.S. and
smart cities, fam, right? What's his name said? What is it? The guy who's the creator of Oracle. Second day of Donald Trump's campaign. There'll be cameras everywhere. You know what I'm saying? Is it Larry Ellison? Forget about it. These guys are the creepy guys, man. And Donald Trump is ushering them in. That's all they're doing. They're repurposing this whole thing to make it more smart city friendly, more fourth industrial revolution. You talked about the Israeli spyware in that last, right? I mean, Derek Bros and his group have been warning people about this. Like, dude, like once Donald Trump gets in, forget about the Israeli spyware. It's coming like there's no tomorrow. And that spies on everything you have. They're listening to all calls, all conversations. Forget about it, ladies and gentlemen. That is now here with the Donald Trump administration. Forget about it.
All right.
Ma'am,
don't forget about us.
I'm going to make a mozzarella en carrozza for you when you come, right? That's a special, like, mozzarella en carrozza is one of my favorite things to make. It's like we take white bread, we cut the ends off. I've never made it for you. You put dry mozzarella inside, not dry, but just not too wet. Inside the two sandwiches, you flour, egg wash, breadcrumb, and you fry it. So it's like a fried cheese sandwich. When you open it up, it's like gooey. It's like a breadstick made out of bread that's dipped in batter and stuff. It's just awesome. But you put little sauces, little things in those mozzarella carrozzas to make them special. And I'm going to make one special for you, fam.
Fam, Rocha's waiting for you. Now you're going to have less problems. So hopefully that'll open things up much more quickly.
We had Manila on yesterday. We have our good friend Caleb Maupin. We know our good friend Garland Nixon. What do you think is going to happen with this? Are they going to lift some sanctions? Because at the end of the day, by the way, shame on those people. If they, in fact, once again, you're innocent until you're proven guilty. I don't know if they did that. But shame on those people at RT if they were freaking sending money to tenant media jerk-off cheerleaders. You know, like Tim Cast and Benny Johnson and Ian Miles Chong and Dave Rubin, all these just cucks for Israel, and you're sending them money backdoor while you're leaving people like Manila Ice Chan, Manila Ice baby.
Wait, I don't think that's up for debate. I think it was proven. There's no.
Well, I haven't heard the people who've been sanctioned. I haven't heard their story. But what I'm saying is RT, regardless, has a tradition of allowing people to come there that are anti-establishment when they got no place to go. Leaving Rick Sanchez high and dry. Leaving Manila Chan high and dry. Leaving these people out in the cold while you're funneling money to these cheerleaders. Now, they're not even journalists. They're cheerleaders. Benny Johnson, a cheerleader. And that's what you're doing. You're tarnishing your good name. This is the place where Ed Schultz finished up his career before he went to the Spirit in the Sky. Same thing with Larry King. It's disgusting what they've done to some of these people, leaving these people out in the cold. It's a shame. And I'm not happy that RT did that, and somebody needs to get on them for that. That really, the optics of how that looked. And I can't still, Rachel Blevins, Mark Sloboda. It's not fair to these people, fam.
It's not fair to the people that work there.
Oh my Lord! Have to wear the RT
getting a fraction.
Brand? No.
Yeah. So anyway, we'll have more on all of that soon. And there's, again, look out for some new things coming up with us and new projects and stuff that we'll announce. But yeah, I mean, in the age of influencers and stuff, some people only care about that. So we gotta fight the censorship. We gotta get you all to support us. We're fully trying to do this in the most transparent way, full of integrity, without it being funded by anybody that's nefarious, and that's actually harder and harder to do, especially with the whole Zionist Trump psyop happening. It's kind of insane. So yeah, I'll have an article on Russia this week, so look out for that one.
On Russia. Fam, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you to CheeseSlice on the ones and twos. Remember, next week, we got a lot of things going on. Go follow our social medias. Find out the ways you can help us out. Rumble ran for Matthew Wine, GATAI 456, $20 with the toasting. Thank you so much. It's a weekend. Toast up, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good brunch this Sunday, and come back and watch us next week. Thank you so much. We appreciate it. I am your host, Craig Pasta Jardula.
By the way, somebody mentioned I gotta do it. We're leaving, but I gotta say, I just want you all to know that there are certain people that are paid specifically to go on certain shows every single time, which is why you see them constantly on the same shows every single time. I sort of allude to that in my article. It's kind of gatekeeping, in my opinion. So just be careful for that.
And listen, if anybody wants to go out there, put it out there. Tell Mike Benz to debate Pasta on the Brazil election. Jack Posobiec, any of those guys want to talk about the Brazilian election, they can actually talk to people like me and Fiorella who were there.
They're not gonna do that.
Okay, they're lying about it. And I'm not a big giant Lula fan. I'm not just supporting Lula. Yes, I have liked him in the past, and he does have a big approval rating, guys, because there are class issues that people are very concerned with in Brazil, and they counted on Lula to fix those class issues that Bolsonaro just fell on his face. So please, RBN at 3 p.m. Eastern today. You can put that up as well. But if anybody wants to have a conversation about that, if Mike Benz starts going off and start telling these lies, it was Matthew Turman who used to fill that void at one point. Then he got persona non grata. Have them have a conversation with somebody who actually was in Brazil. We'd be glad to have that conversation if they got the stones, fam, to come on with us, but I don't think they do.
All right, guys, that's it. We'll see you next time on the TruthWire.